रजा फाउंडेशन और इंडिया इंटरनेशनल सेंटर के संयुक्त तत्वावधान में आयोजित आर्ट मैटर्स की ये 67वीं कड़ी है। यानी हम पिछले 6 साल से आप में से कुछ का बौद्धिक दर्प दमन कर रहे हैं और अधिकांश का शोषण कर रहे हैं। कृष्णा सोप्ती का रजा फाउंडेशन से एक विशेष संबंध है, सिवाय इसके कि वो इसके अलावा कि वो एक हिंदी की बड़ी लेखिका थी। कहानी बहुतों को मालूम है, पर एक दिन उनका मुझे फोन आया और कहा आप रजा फाउंडेशन कब जाते हैं? मैंने कहा कि मैं करीब 1-1:30 बजे जाता हूँ। तो उन्होंने कहा कि अच्छा यहाँ होते जाइए। तो मैं गया। तो पहले तो उन्होंने कहा कि हमने एक फाउंडेशन बनाया है, वो कुछ कर नहीं रहा है, तो कागज पे रह गया है, तो उसको आप ले लीजिए। तो हमने कहा कि नहीं, ऐसे तो कैसे ले लेंगे, उसकी कोई कानूनी प्रक्रिया होती होगी। तो हालांकि उनको कानूनी प्रक्रिया की काफ़ी जानकारी थी, उसमें बहुत जीवन भर उलझी रही, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि इसमें कानूनी क्या है, मतलब हमने कहा लेकिन फिर पता करते हैं। पता किया कि नहीं, कानूनी प्रक्रिया है। तो एक किस्सा कोता है ये कि एक दिन फिर उन्होंने थोड़े दिन बाद फ़ोन किया। 2-3 बार मैं उनसे मिला, मैंने उनको समझाया कि हमको एक पिटीशन दायर करनी पड़ेगी सिविल कोर्ट में वगैरह वगैरह। फिर एक दिन का फिर फोन आया कि आप आज कब जा रहे हैं? तो मैंने कहा फिर आइए। तो मैं आ गया। तो कहा मैंने एक तय किया है कि मेरे शिवनाथ जी ने मेरे नाम 1 करोड़ रुपए छोड़े थे, वो 1 करोड़ रुपए मैं रजा फाउंडेशन को देना चाहती हूँ। अरे हमने कहा हमारे पास खुदा के फजल से रजा साहब की उदारता से इतनी कोई कमी नहीं है, आप सोच लीजिए। कहने नहीं, मैंने सोच लिया। मैंने कहा नहीं ऐसे हम नहीं लेंगे, सोच लीजिए। हम 2-3 दिन बाद फिर उनका फोन आया कि अशोक जी वो आप आइए, मैंने सोच लिया है। तो मैं गया। तो उन्होंने 70 लाख का एक चेक और 30 लाख का एक चेक मुझे पकड़ा दिया। तो मैंने कहा सुनिए, रजा फाउंडेशन तो बहुत सारी गतिविधियां करता है, हमारे तो बहुत सारे कलाओं में लक्ष्य हैं, तो इसको आप कुछ वो करिए कि किस लिए हम इस्तेमाल करेंगे। तो उनका आप ही चिट्ठी बना दीजिए। तो हम ठीक है, हम चिट्ठी बना देंगे। तो फिर ये चिट्ठी बनी कि इट विल बी यूज्ड फॉर लैंग्वेज एंड लिटरेचर। इससे उनका अभी उदारता समाप्त नहीं हुई। उनको ज्ञानपीठ पुरस्कार मिला। जाने वाली थी, उनका वक्तव्य भी तैयार था, लेकिन फिर उनकी तबीयत कुछ नासाज हो गई, नहीं जा पाई। तो मुझे उन्होंने जिम्मेदारी दी कि आप जाइए। तो मैं गया। मैंने उनके और जो उसके निदेशक थे, मैंने उनसे कहा कि चेक और मूर्ति वगैरह आप ही जाके उनको दे आइए। तो उनका ठीक है। तो वो गए बाद में और वहाँ दे आए। दूसरे दिन सुबह फिर उनका फोन आया कि वो चेक फिर पड़ा है। अब मैं कहा माथा ठनका कि अब कौन सा चेक? तो मैंने कहा अब कौन सा चेक है? बोले वो 11 लाख जो भारतीय ज्ञानपीठ। तो मैंने कहा तो अच्छा, उनके पास पैसे की तंगी थी, ये मुझे पता था। तो मैंने कहा नहीं ये तो वही जाएगा। अब उनसे कोई बहस तो की नहीं जा सकती। तो बहरहाल तो 1 करोड़ 11 लाख रुपए उन्होंने हमें दे रखा है, जिसका उम्मीद है कि हम सदुपयोग ही कर रहे हैं, जब तक के कोई सरकारी इदारा हम पर उंगली नहीं उठाता। इसकी खासी कोशिश वो करता रहता है। बहरहाल कृष्णा जी के जीवन के, उनकी शैली के, उनकी लिखने के बहुत सारे पक्ष हैं, इन पर मैं बात नहीं करूंगा। हमने 3 विदिशुओं को बुलाया है जो उस पर बात करेंगी। वसुधा डालमिया, अनुराधा कपूर और गीता हरिहरन। एक तो सब आप लोग यहाँ आके बैठ जाइए ताकि थोड़ी कोरियोग्राफी ठीक हो जाए। We have kept the theme broadly a writer and her world. So they are free to explore any aspect of that. Normally, they should take each one of them 15 to 20 minutes, and then it should be open for comments and questions. So who would like to start? You? Yes. Vasudha Dalmia, as you know, is a famous scholar and a good friend, has taught in Berlin, in Berkeley, and has done remarkable work in understanding the emergence and growth of modernism in Hindi literature. So there you are.
We'll have to adjust this. Thank you for organizing this and for inviting us, giving us an occasion to remember Krishna Ji with all of you. I first read Krishna Ji's works in the mid-1990s. It's not loud enough? It's too near now. Yeah. Okay. I first read Krishna Ji's works in the mid-1990s. One of her most famous novels, Dil-o Danish, literally Heart and Mind, had just appeared. It had been reviewed very widely, also in the English language press. I read it in what seemed to me one gasp. Such depth, such simplicity, so much meaning conveyed in so few words. It became my story, as much I imagine of anyone else who read it. Set in 1920s Delhi, it presented the world of a beautiful young woman, the daughter of a Muslim courtesan, Mahak, and the distinguished caste lawyer, Kripa Narayan, her lover, patron, and the father of her two children. But it was not only the story of their romance, destined to end tragically, that caught my own heart and mind. The novel also offered deep insight into the life of Kripa Narayan's Haveli, his family, and the feelings of his wife, Kutum Pyari. Whether we liked her or not, we knew that she was also fighting a battle most wives considered lost right from the start. Strangely, given the easy betrayals he had practiced on his women, it was Kripa Narayan who was left lost, lonely, and wistful at the end of the novel and of his own life, his mind wandering the lanes of his beloved walled city, even as he lay on his deathbed. I taught the novel to my German students in the University of Tübingen, as I was to do again later when I moved to the University of California in Berkeley. My students were as mesmerized as I. In a very short time, I had read every work of hers that I could lay my hands on. And of course, when I came to Delhi that many years ago, I made a beeline for her apartment in the high rise across the river that she has memorialized so poignantly in her autobiographical novel, Samay Sargam. I was to translate it later as the music of solitude. So when I visited her in the small curtained sitting room of the apartment, there she was, seated, unforgettable Krishna Ji in her flowing robes. We were to have tea together. Her table was covered with a lavish spread, as lavish as her generosity. Shivnath Ji was still very much alive then, grave, warm-hearted, practical, trying always to balance her impetuosity and her radical social and political convictions with his more sober views. In subsequent conversations, I caught glimpses not only of her life, but also of his very different one, of his personal losses and of his memories. Krishnaji appears as Aranya in the novel, The Music of Solitude, writing still at the end of the 20th century in her bastion atop her high-rise on the east side of the city. Her mid-century memories around partition, the passage of time in the life of New Old Delhi, as she called it, a New Delhi also grown old, her mid-century memories mark the passage of time in the life of New Old Delhi. In the course of her long life, Aranya had moved from one Delhi to another, to land finally in the treeless jungle of concrete of a Trans-Yamuna residential complex, the past Delhis just out of reach, glimmering on the other side of the river. I quote from a novel. In the distance, the dome of Humayun's tomb basked in its own arc of sunlight. The warmth of the winter sun brushed her clothes lightly. The endless drama of existence, and that too on such a vast stage. This earth, the sky, the sun, the winds, and us. What remained to be enacted on this stage now? End quote. The partition of the subcontinent had destroyed and overlaid the beauty and grace of Shahjahanabad. The tram running through the city and the tracks laid on the sides of streets vanished in the twinkling of an eye. The row of trees lining Chandni Chowk was made to disappear. Stoves were lit on the tracks, dal and roti began to be made there. The Lahore gate of the Red Fort looked on in silence, as did the residents of Delhi. Parts of the wall encircling the city were swept away. The pleasure gardens of Old Delhi residents on the outskirts of the city were rapidly sold off. And also in the twinkling of an eye, disappeared into the master plan. There was a complete metamorphosis of villages. 304 villages of Delhi district were transformed into bigger settlements. Their identities were preserved in the names of streets and small shops. And like them, we fresh citizens of yesteryears were transformed into the senior citizens of today. The pace of time. End quote. The violence and destruction of the Mughal city alternates with the calm of a yet older Delhi. Its ghosts laid to rest now and recalled as Ishan and Aranya walk in Lodi gardens. The trees beyond the mosque are calm, laden with their own capricious branches. Who knows what the flocks of birds are saying to them? Krishna Sobti possesses the almost uncanny ability to grasp complex change in the geographical and social makeup of Delhi, its building, rebuilding, destruction, and reconstruction, and to layer it simply and deeply into her fiction. New Old Delhi, with its leisurely pace, its tree-lined avenues, lies buried in the recesses of the mind. I quote, "When I see long rows of laburnum, yellow blossom and green fruit dangling from the boughs. I feel I am a tree myself, covered with yellow and green. Mornings and evenings, I used to walk on blazing, beautiful Haley Road, lying concealed in my mind somewhere, perhaps. Friendships would provide the measure of these. The end goal was commonplace, bubbling beautiful days of picking restaurants. Standard, Gaylord, Volga, Embassy, La Boheme, Nirula, York, Ginza, Alps, Maidens. Towards the end of the month, the coffee house or the tea house. Spending and then cutting back. heady days of youth and spring. End quote. And now, in the discontinuity of the megacity, with no definable center, the barren landscape of its exurbs, dotted with chokis, the brand new roads which carry no memories of the past, the small detail park is the one refuge of senior citizens who congregate there in the evenings to silently document those who have begun to miss their daily walk, the terminally ill and the wholly missing. I go back to the beginning of this novel to record Krishnaji's own sense of life and death. Aranya stretched her arms and opened the window. Keep flowing sun-drenched winds as long as I live. Keep reaching out to me. I wish my time here to reverberate, and all that bears fruit, all that which is created. I wish to mark the flower beds of worlds with that. None is excluded from the pressure of existence. Fire lives from the death of earth, wind from the death of fire, water from the death of wind, and the earth is kept alive by the death of water.
Anuradha Kapur produced a performance based on Dilo Danish, at least one I saw in Vasudha Dalmia's house, so it would be appropriate that you follow. Anuradha Kapur, of course, is a well-known theatre person, has been director of the National School of Drama, etc.
Thank you. Thank you. As Vasudha said, it's a very special opportunity to share some thoughts on actually preparing a performance of Dilo Danish. I'd like to put that to you. I read Dilo Danish in the early 2000s, surely one of the greatest novels of today. The light and shadow of the city, the smells, the taste and the textures, the complex interwoven lives of Delhi's inhabitants of the 1920s, presented in material detail, came almost as a shock to the system. The novel seemed to want us to listen and hear acutely, so that we may be drawn in and drawn up into its many sensuous worlds, connecting perception to memory in inexplicable ways. The narratives emerged splice by splice and frame by frame, Delhi of the 1920s. I seem to know it, but how? I have only known somewhat blurrily the Delhi of the 1950s. Was this some sort of baffling homesickness that I was experiencing? I wanted very much to stage the novel, and yet, if it were to be staged, how might we present the memory of these refracted, interwoven worlds, this feeling of strange homesickness in any embodied way? In my attempt to think through a form for Dilo Danish, I had the privilege of talking to Krishnaji over many teas. Yet again and again, the word dramatization appeared somehow shorn, a shorthand whenever and however I thought about it. While the novel did rise up like a stage set in my mind, it needed to come up like Proust's famous image of a stage-set, where a vast structure of recollections rise up in the mind at the sensation of a madeleine in the mouth. Thus memory as stage set, triggered by a particular smell, an angle of light, the winter rain in Jama Masjid. So what form was I to adopt, I wondered. The intricate network of business and friendships, loves and betrayals, tongas and gullies, gifts and forfeitures, all laid layer by layer on the landscape which exists, albeit in altered form, in today's material city. Thus scene, memory, point of view, perspective, inner monologue, soliloquy, exchange, asides, individual histories are superimposed upon and one upon the other. A finely complex taste, sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and all the tastes in between. This text compels one to be attentive to the details of the atmosphere. It forces a quality of acute listening and acute seeing, deep seeing, to alter for my purposes a phrase that David Shulman uses in a completely different context. Deep seeing, Shulman argues, is recursive, in that we are often re-seeing something partly or entirely visible before, but this time from a vantage point where seeing itself has been folded back upon itself. In order to render the angles and the sightlines of the narrative, the cadences of memory and narration, it seemed that the novel required not dramatization, but a durational reading. A reading that enunciated the commas and full stops of the story as written up by Krishnaji lasted about 3 hours. Durational readings elongate time out of the habitual mode or the current default mode, that standard unit of experience dictated not just by clocks but by the now of the city. Work, leisure, commuting, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all this is pushed into another rhythm. By stretching time, such readings test the stamina of both reader and listener, and both together shed the hectic beat of today to enter Dilo-Danish, when Delhi lived slow. Against the blistering speed of everything around us today, the slowness of Dilo-Danish, in narrative as well as its reading, allows us to be attentive to the different human temporalities that exist in any one moment. The act of listening over hours to the Hindustani, the Urdu Hindi of Old Delhi, so subtly written up by Krishnaji, helped to recall the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb of that vocal universe. It helped fashion a new kind of remembering and also a new kind of forgetting. It reminded us that when not wired up or modified by algorithms, our imperfect human memory is as much about forgetting as it is about remembering. It seemed to us as well that this universe needed to be created without any actorly intervention, without any characterization, that is. Not acting created a world. The readers sat on a takht, had their books in their hands, and read evenly. And listening channeled the atmosphere of the novel to the audience, like images in a dream. Masuma and Badru hanging in the balcony, waiting for gifts from Jama Masjid. Will there be partridges or quails, mainas or bulbuls? As it turns out, they are lihafs, satin lihafs for the children. And Mehak. Once she knows she has been betrayed, Mehak, their mother, unhurriedly combing her hair and tying a bun, while determining the course of a box, the box of her mother's jewels. The door in her mind that slams shut and then falls off its hinges when she realizes that both her children will leave her and choose their father's haveli instead of her rooms in Farash Khana. The action of memory and of forgetting, rediscoveries and reimaginings form the substance of nostalgia. But nostalgia is not only a sickness of the heart. Svetlana Boym differentiates between retrospective nostalgia and prospective nostalgia. What she calls prospective nostalgia is about the now. Prospective nostalgia attends to different temporalities. It is about the ruins and construction sites of today, where reflection and longing, estrangement and affection go together. Prospective nostalgia. In this context, I'd like to just take your attention to two of my most favorite pieces in the novel. I want to bring to your attention some of the greatest sections of Dilo-Danish, the magnificent soliloquies, monologues, and reveries that craft a past and look at the future, spoken by Channa and by Kripa Narayan, to name these two. Soliloquy is a dialogue or conversation between two faculties or attributes of oneself. These attributes are not binaries, they are porous and filter into each other to set up a philosophical debate, as it were, between love, jealousy, grace and possession, between freedom and unfreedom, between reticence, anxiety and headlong emotion, yearning and desolation, inaction and action. Soliloquies in Dil o Danish lie between perception and hallucination, private meditation, philosophical debate, and certainly reverie. This self-discoursing practice is distributed across architecture, geography, and object, embodying the drama of the city. Channa's description to her dying brother Kripanarayan of Mehak's almost epic entry into the marriage ceremony of their daughter Masuma is a sort of reverie, a recursive description. We see again what we have seen and understood before, that Mehak has been forced to give up her daughter Masuma into adoption. In a legal sleight of hand, the child has been adopted by her own father, Mehak's longtime lover and husband Kripanarayan, so that she might shed the stigma of being a courtesan's daughter. Channa describes Mehak as she enters the marriage pandal and walks what seems a very, very long distance to her daughter, sitting bedecked as a bride. And with majestic grace and in slow time, she lifts the girl's face towards herself. In this one move, she performs a double gesture. She both gives her child away in marriage, but also simultaneously and publicly claims her as her own. And how to describe the extraordinary last section, the will of Kripanarayan, which is a will, testament, a soliloquy, a monologue, and an address to the city all at once. Kripanarayan's will is about the urge to cross temporal borders. It is about life lived and life to be lived. It is about continuities as well as breaks. It is not self-righteous about the past, nor is it only celebratory about the present. It is a dialogue with distant friends across time and space. And I quote a translation by Amitabh Bachchi. There are so many things I want to do today, but where is the time to do anything now? This destructible way station is not a pleasure house. He who stays, stays for a night and then must move on. I am a guest now in this world that, by the grace of God, I built and adorned in this very house. The echoes of life ring out from the banks of time that ramify on either side. The large and small bells of Gauri Shankar's temple are ringing. Like a few pearls of bundi given as prasad, just a few days more, or maybe just a few hours. He who comes must also go. Birth and death. Keep being born, children. I know that even when I am not gone from here, I will continue to wander in the by-lanes of Delhi. Through the eyes of my grandsons, I will continue to keep watch on my favorite pushcarts. The clamour of the citizens of Delhi is like a bouquet, and I will continue to breathe in its fragrance. Jamun, shehtoot, khirni, chaat pakodi, imarti, jalebi, bedmi kachori, rabdi, khurchan, Ghantewala's pistati laws. Strolling towards Ghantagar on a winter afternoon, ambling to Chandni Chowk on a summer evening, watching the clouds preen above Jama Masjid in the monsoon. What a beautiful sight. What beautiful sights are woven into this city. The spirit of this city, abutting the Jamuna, bound to it, who knows who all it has called out to over the centuries, who all it has drawn to itself and nurtured with soil and water like its own child. God, never let Delhi become desolate. Let it always flourish in its word and its deed. Let the hearts of the eyes of Delhiwalas always stroll through the lanes. Which Delhiwala wouldn't want to find himself in the crowds thronging Gariba? Who doesn't yearn for Rasya Banarsi's pan that seems to dissolve in the mouth? Live long, my friend, live long. Let the pandan in every home remain fresh and moist along with you. And let the price of your pans keep increasing. Why am I leaving this enticing city behind? leaving the flavor, this love of life, behind? And why does it feel that the lights are dimmer? Have they dimmed? Master Ramichan, that angel-like man, used to say. I can't remember what he used to say. Those mushairas at Mission College that passed so quickly. That line, let the garden of the world flourish in 100 colors. Now I take your leave from you, from myself, and from this world where I lived for so many years. Khuda Hafiz, Kripa Narayan. Thank you.
Well, you do get some flavor of Krishnaji's language, but the original is mind-boggling. The kind of sensuousness and the kind of descriptive power it has. Anyway, Githa Hariharan, who knew Krishnaji quite well and writes in English and is one of the more militant of us, getting us together, all kinds of dharnas and such like.
I was hoping we would hear Krishnaji's work in the original. And I can say this rather smugly, being since I speak Tamil Hindi via Matunga in Bombay. At the outset, I should say that I've read Krishna Sobti's work only in English translation. I got to know her well only perhaps in the last 5 years of her life. Yet, what a powerful bond I felt then, and what a powerful bond I still feel, And what could be the reason for that? I can think of various things. I write fiction. But really, I think it was because there was so much of her. There really was so much of her. There was Krishna Sobti, the woman whom I got to know, woman to woman. We talked about all kinds of things, including some women's locker room conversation. We discussed men. Of course, we discussed publishers, because writers can't get together without discussing publishers and trashing them almost as sharply as we trash men when we're sitting alone together. She would give me tea and show me that Napoleon was waiting in the fridge and would follow. It took me all of 2 seconds to figure out who Napoleon was and why he was sitting in the fridge. So she was, as a woman, stubborn, feisty. I liked it. I felt, for those of us younger, looking every single day to redefine as we live this womanhood. What is it? So she gave me a clue there. So there is Krishna Sobti, the woman. There is Krishna Sobti, the writer. And there, I could imagine her, because she always got up very late in the morning. I could imagine her up all night. I was a little disapproving, because I was brought up to get up early in the morning and work and sleep at night. So this was very exciting for me, that somebody sat up all night and wrote. So her companions were the darkness outside and silence, and I imagine her negotiating what kind of themes, what kind of unique take she's going to give each one of these themes, whether it's sexuality, whether it is the flavor of a city, and then the negotiations with language. I have to confess that one of the reasons I fell in love with her immediately was that she told me Hindi is a vegetarian language. As all Madrasis coming to Delhi will tell you, that it's very hard for us to get over the fact that people laugh at our Hindi. So I loved it that Krishna Sobti laughed at Hindi. And then there was Krishna Sobti, the citizen, uncompromising, bold, outspoken. So suppose I try something strange and pretend that we can disaggregate Krishna Sobti and look at these three Krishna Sobtis before we put her back together again in tribute. So I have three scenes in my mind. Like a filmmaker, if the camera is far away and we start with Krishna Sobti, the citizen, I see her on a wheelchair, the wheelchair carried onto the stage in 2015 when an event called Pratirodh was organized by Ashok and other friends. Ashok won't like it if I say other comrades, but. So the wheelchair was taken onto the stage, and she said that broadly, not in a Hindi, but what she said was, the Almighty has given me many years, and I have seen many things, many histories. I've seen what British rule was like. I've seen what the struggle for independence was like. I have seen what revolutionaries look like, their heads held high. And I have seen that today we are fighting that battle all over again. This is a time when we have to fight all over again. This is what she said that day. Sitting in a wheelchair, age no barrier, clear-eyed, sharp, clear of mind, calling us to battle. That was in 2015. Citizen Sobti. Then the writer, almost the first personal thing she said to me, when a friendship begins, in retrospect, I see, when the friendship begins, you half-consciously choose what you will reveal to the other person about yourself. And what she chose to tell me, and later I learned that she loved telling the story, was about her first novel. So, after she told me that Hindi is vegetarian, and she said, in my first novel I mixed up, I had all kinds of registers of Hindi, I had Urdu, I had Punjabi, and apparently the publishers, she put it beautifully. She said they thought I was some girl. All women know that girl is one of the most insulting things they can say. They thought I was some girl, and they corrected it. They Sanskritized it and sent it back. And that she was enraged, and she said, forget it. I'll buy the copies, and everybody knows the story. So this is a writer not just difficult and feisty and stubborn, but also uncompromising. This is what I'm going to do with language. This is the place we live in, where languages leak into each other and don't know borders. So that was the kind of writer she was. Then writer and woman. I think what fascinated me was that she refused to get into this simplified ghetto that other people make of women writers. This really spoke to me. My first novel happened to be about 3 generations of Indian women, and I got patted on the back, as if to say, because I'm a woman, I'm an expert on women. And my second novel was not about women, and immediately I was told, oh my God, isn't she getting a little too big for her Kolhapuri chappals? So, Krishna ji she knew that it doesn't work like this. It's not black and white. Women are as obsessed with men as men are obsessed with women. Otherwise, you cannot talk about the great themes, love, sex, and power struggles. So this is what she was. And I think what put it all together, I take away 2 things, like my personal legacy, which I offer to you to share in. One is that she took risks. A risk taker is very special. Ashok was telling us about the risk with the crore and 11 lakhs. Those are important too. Risk with financial generosity. But she took risks in her work. She took risks with a male pseudonym. It's fantastic. So she said, I can be Hashmat, I can be male. So she took risks with language. She took risks as a woman. I think some of us, there might be personal secrets that we don't want to know about, but really she was known for herself, not as daughter of somebody or wife of somebody. So there were those risks taken as well. And of course, as a citizen, she spoke her mind. But other than the risk-taking, what I remember the most in those last months was the number of times she referred to the importance of joy, the importance of living. So I read it like this, that engaging is life. If you have engaged with life personally in your writing as a citizen, you enjoy it. That was a long life, a complex life, and she enjoyed it. I think that's her legacy. And if she were here today, I think she would have a lot to tell us. Not only in terms of enjoying life, the food, the drink, the sex, the laughter, the pleasure, but also I think that she would say, take me, it doesn't matter if I'm on a wheelchair, take me to Shaheen Bagh. I think that's what she would say. Thank you.
मित्रों, कृष्णा जी उन कम से कम हिंदी में उन जैसा और कोई लेखक नहीं है जिसने अपने से ज्यादा युवतर लेखकों के ऊपर भी लिखा है और विस्तार से लिखा है। हम हशमत नाम की उनकी 4 जिल्दें हैं, मुझी पर 3 बार लिखा है और बड़ों बड़ों पर भी लिखा है, लेकिन ऐसे लोग जिनको हम भूल भी गए हों, जिनको खास मसरफ के नहीं निकले साहित्य में, उनको भी कृष्णा जी ने याद किया है। दूसरी बात, कृष्णा जी एकमात्र कथाकार हैं जिसने मुक्तिबोध की कविता पर एक पूरी किताब लिखी। I know of no fiction writer, at least in Hindi, who will write a whole book on a poet. तीसरी बात, वो रात को लिखती थी और बहुत बड़े हरफों में लिखती थी और इसके लिए उनके रीमों कागज होते थे, क्योंकि एक सफ़े पर कोई 40-50 शब्द ही आ सकते थे जैसे वो लिखती थी। प्रकाशकों ने उनको कितना तंग किया है मैं नहीं जानता, पर उन्होंने भी प्रकाशकों को बहुत तंग किया। गुजरात पाकिस्तान से गुजरात हिंदुस्तान, उनका एक मेमोर जैसा कुछ है। वो बेचारे अशोक माहेश्वरी राजकमल के हमारे सामने मैं बैठा हूं और उनके साथ रस रंजन कर रहा हूं और उन्होंने एक कवर मंजूर किया। अगले 2 दिन बाद वो छपकर आ गया, मैं फिर उनके साथ बैठा हूं और उन्होंने कहा देखो उसने क्या बदतमीजी की है। तो मैंने कहा ये तो आप ही ने कहा, नहीं नहीं ये सब गड़बड़ है, इसको बदलना पड़ेगा। और बेचारे सहमते हुए आए अशोक माहेश्वरी, उन्होंने कहा नहीं तो आप ही ने कहा था और ऐसा है वैसा है वगैरह वगैरह। तीसरी बात ये थी कि वो हर व्यक्ति के जो उनके परिमंडल में थे उसकी तारीखें बखूबी याद रखती थी। और जब वो अपनी मृत्युशैया पर थी, यानी उनको 10 दिन बाद गुजर जाना है, 15 तारीख को मैं अश्लोक अस्पताल में शाम को पहुंचा, 16 को मेरी वर्षगांठ थी, तो मैंने सोचा कि 15 को उनसे मिल लूं। तो उन्होंने एक कश्मीरी कुछ काफ्तान जैसा मंगा के मेरे लिए रखा था और कहा था कि मुझे पता था कि आज ही आप आएंगे, कल नहीं आ पाएंगे, इसलिए मैं अभी से आपको ये दे रही। ऐसे 15 कोई मेरे मित्र, घनिष्ठ मित्र भी याद नहीं रखते कि मैं कब पैदा हुआ, ऐसा क्या याद रखने की जरूरत भी क्या है, लेकिन उनको याद रहता था। और वो हर बार 15 तारीख या 16 तारीख को उनका ड्राइवर आता था, तमाम बिस्कुट और फलाना फल, कोई कभी शॉल, कभी कोई स्वेटर वगैरह देती, और ऐसा वो औरों के साथ भी करती थी। तो बहरहाल कृष्णा जी की एक और विशेषता थी, उन्होंने अपने एक लेखक के साथ, कृष्ण बलदेव वैद, जिनका भी हाल में देहावसान हुआ, और कल यहीं मल्टीपर्पज हॉल में शाम 6 बजे उनकी स्मृति सभा है, उनके साथ संवाद की एक पूरी पुस्तक प्रकाशित की। उन्होंने जो गल्प लिखा है, यानी कहानी उपन्यास, वो एक जगह है, लेकिन उन्होंने जो दूसरा बहुत सारा गद्य लिखा है वो भी। और आपको याद होगा जब कृष्णा जी ने प्रतिरोध में अपना भाषण दिया तो वो कौन सा मावलंकर हॉल पूरा खड़ा हो गया था उनको ताली बजाने के लिए, क्योंकि इतने जोश में वो बोली थी, और उन्होंने कहा था ये लड़ने का वक्त है और ये वगैरह वगैरह। तो ये निश्चय ही है कि अगर आज वो होती तो बहुत पहले जा चुकी होती शाहीन बाग, इसमें शक नहीं है। बहरहाल अगर आप में से कोई कुछ प्रश्न पूछना चाहे इन 3 विभूतियों से, विदुषियों से, तो उसकी आप लोगों ने सबको स्तब्ध कर दिया, तो इसलिए कोई प्रश्न नहीं पूछ रहा है। हाँ जी, एक मिनट आपके माइक।
उनकी और भी बहुत नॉवेल्स थी, एक दिल और दानिश नहीं, और हम लोग जो कृष्णा जी जैसे पंजाबी रेफ्यूजी हैं, हमारे को तो जिंदगी नामा और विद्रोह मरजानी, हमारे लिए तो उसमें पंजाब की झलक है, और उस हिंदी में पंजाबी की झलक है। तो मैं सोचती हूँ उसको इग्नोर नहीं करना।
नहीं, उसे इग्नोर नहीं, क्योंकि इन लोगों ने काम किया था उस पर, इसलिए इग्नोर तो कोई कैसे कर सकता है। जिंदगी नामा हिंदी का एक क्लासिक माना जाता है, इसमें तो कोई संदेह नहीं है। मित्रों मरजानी जैसी कहानी हिंदी में पहले लिखी नहीं गई कभी, और कृष्णा जी की कहानियां और उनके उपन्यास और इतने अधिक हैं कि उनमें से सब पर तो बातचीत संभव नहीं है, लेकिन हाँ, जिंदगी नामा तो एक बहुत प्रसिद्ध क्लासिक है, और उसको हिंदी संसार को स्वीकार करने में बहुत समय लगा, क्योंकि उसको लेकर बहुत विवाद था कि वो किस भाषा में लिखा गया है। ये दोनों विवाद दोनों लेखकों ने सहे हैं, कृष्ण बलदेव वैद ने कि वो उर्दू में हिंदी लिखते हैं, और कृष्णा जी ने कि वो पंजाबी और उर्दू में हिंदी लिखती हैं, जबकि इन दोनों की हिंदी इसी वजह से बहुत समृद्ध हिंदी है, और उसमें इतनी अंतरलय और इतनी अंतर्ध्वनियां हैं जो सीधे सीधे हिंदी लिखने वालों में कई बार नहीं भी होती। मसलन प्रेमचंद में नहीं है वो, क्योंकि प्रेमचंद तो सीधे साधे हिंदी लिख रहे थे और एक कथाकार थे, और बात है, लेकिन अगर आप सिर्फ भाषा पर विचार करें तो जो अंतर्ध्वनियां इन लोगों में हैं। और कोई? हाँ जी,
question is for Gita ma'am. And you said that you thought that there is no black or white in
जोर से बोलिए। हाँ।
So I'll just repeat myself. You mentioned that there is no black or white in the way she built her characters, and I also, while reading several novels, I figured out that her characters always and purposely operate in a certain gray zone. Could you elaborate on that? I would really like to know your
Take the
thought.
My voice is loud. I don't even think I need a mic. Of course, I'm in the happy position of imagining what Krishna Sobti would have said to that. But let me give you a kind of writerly answer, which is that the minute you begin to think in terms of black and white, your arguments are weak. So whether you're an academic or a filmmaker or a novelist, you're going to be a little, what shall I say, crude. and the best of novels and poems certainly cannot be crude. So I think all of us float around in grey is the wrong color. It's instead of black and white, I would say we float around in a world of multiple hues, so that we make use of ambiguity, because life teaches us ambiguity.
Yeah. I thought there should be a man who asked the question as well. It's becoming too much of a... I love the concept of risk. I think it's a key word. I run a very modest initiative I call the Fictionarium. My name is Bodyguard, Lieutenant Bodyguard. I think the element of risk is that basic risk. That when you're writing or you're play acting or you're staging or poetry, you reveal yourself, irrespective of how hard you try to. And that's a great risk for anybody to say that I'm going to open myself up, either to somebody who begins with the publisher, perhaps, with friends. But if you take that element today and see how people are revealing themselves on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they kind of just open, younger people. Would you have anything to say about that and Delhi and Sobti? How would she take it?
Truly the stuff of fiction. I think, it's very hard to separate today in the social media arena whether risks are taken because you are taking the risk or risks are being taken to be viewed. So I don't think that Krishna Sobti, luckily being innocent of social media, that I suspect she was like that. I'm not saying, I think it's important to point out that risk-taking doesn't necessarily mean you are always making the right choice.
Yeah.
I'm sure that old friends of hers would have a very long list of wrong choices, of bad risks. But the point is, she was willing to take it. And I think that's essential to a writer's life, because you have something in your head, and the minute you put down 2 pages, you know that you have blown it. So then you console yourself and say, well, okay, I've started, let me write this and finish this, and the next one will be the magnum opus. Now, this is, I know this is how it works. So there's that risk-taking, but I wanted to also say that there was a link. Very often, I always feel it's better not to meet writers personally, because you might admire their work, and when you meet them, you don't admire them so much. But in her case, there was a continuity between this risk-taking writer and this risk-taking human being.
Yeah, so there's no shadow.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Can I ask?
Yes, go ahead. हाँ, बोलिए
आवाज का
बोलिए बोलिए नहीं आप रुकिए हाँ बोलिए
ओके ऐसा है कि कृष्णा दीदी से मेरा उनसे रिश्ता रहा है। जितना मैंने उनको जाना समझा, मुझे 2 बातें लगती थी कि जो उनका व्यक्तित्व था, जो आपने कहा रिस्क टेकिंग था, she wanted to do what she wanted to do, she did it, और उसके पीछे कोई गो बैक नहीं होता था। मुझे लगता है उनके जो उपन्यासों में, कहानियों में जो चरित्र हैं, वो उसी की डिपिक्शन से आते हैं। पहले तो मित्रों मर्दानी शुरू वहीं से हुआ था। That set a trend of a woman who can think, who can do what she wants to do. तो मैं जितना जानती हूँ, मुझे लगता है कि सबसे बड़ी बात यही थी जो आपने उनके बारे में कही है, वो वही सब कुछ है जो मैंने उनके साथ देखा है, उनके साथ जिया है, और जिसके लिए मैं उनको बहुत प्यार करती थी और बहुत सम्मान करती थी। तो उनके उपन्यासों में, उनकी कहानियों में, उनके दिलो दानिश में, उनके सारे जो आप जिंदगी नामा है, उनमें सब में जो है वो वही है जो कृष्णा दीदी बाहर हैं, वो अपने उपन्यासों में।
Yes. You want to say something?
I just want to put in a little word about this in terms of risk-taking, Gita, the one that you're talking about. I think that's true, but it was a very, very studied risk-taking. Because often did she talk about, her creative process and how she gets into a work of art and writing in particular. And she would say that the first draft that she would produce was not even the beginning, she would say. And then the second draft would come, and then the third draft would come, and that is talking about novels like Zindagi Nama, huge. So huge texts, but there would be several drafts. And interestingly, she says, I used to, मुझे पता था ये सारा पहला draft ठीक नहीं है, तो मैं दूसरा करती हूँ, फिर मैं तीसरा करती हूँ. लेकिन always she would say that she would come back to the first draft and reject the middle one. And yet, I don't know, there was a strange working of the mind. But she would say it so naturally, and that is what we need to really remember even in the context of Channa, which came out, that was her first novel which came out at the end of her life. And the beauty is the kind of patience. There was risk-taking without impatience. Like usually when one takes a risk, you also want to plunge, and then, she wouldn't do that. She would take a plunge, creative plunge, but then very study it and then put it in the suitcase or trunk, she used to say. मैंने उसको trunk में रख दिया. And 50 years later, she might open it, she might not open it. अशोक जी को पता है हमने कितना persuade करके उनको कहा कि चन्ना निकालिए novel. And we got it published. You also played your role in terms of having it published. A remarkable patience which usually is very difficult to get in a writer.
Yes, yes. आप पूछें सर?
हाँ,
मैं पूछ लीजिए.
नहीं, मुझे माइक की जरूरत नहीं.
नहीं, पर हम रिकॉर्ड कर रहे हैं, हमको जरूरत है. आप बाद में पलट न जाएं.
मैं कृष्णा जी को 13 साल की उम्र से पढ़ रही हूँ. मैंने सबसे पहले उनकी कहानी पढ़ी थी बादलों के घेरे, और उसको मैंने कम से कम 100 बार पढ़ा होगा. और उसके बाद उनकी सभी कहानियाँ, सभी उपन्यास मैंने पढ़े. लेकिन मुझे एक चीज, उन्होंने इमरजेंसी को सपोर्ट किया. एक दिन शाम को मैं इस सवाल को पूछने के लिए उनके घर जाना चाहती थी. एक विजय मोहन सिंह नाम के लेखक थे, वो मुझे मिल गए. नहीं आप मत जाइए. तो मैं नहीं गई. वो सवाल मेरे मन में ही रह गया कि आपने इमरजेंसी को क्यों सपोर्ट किया. तो
आप विजय मोहन सिंह के कहे रुकी, तो अब रुकी रही है. अब और क्या हो सकता है, इसका जवाब देने को तो वो है नहीं. आपको याद होगा कि उस समय बहुत सारे वामपंथी लेखकों ने, इनमें कई बड़े लेखक शामिल थे, भीषम साहनी और हरिशंकर परसाई और नामवर सिंह, इन सब ने आपातकाल का समर्थन किया था. तो वो एक
हाँ, लेकिन मैंने कृष्णा जी से ये बिल्कुल नहीं, इसकी अपेक्षा मैंने कृष्णा जी से नहीं की थी. कृष्णा जी नामवर सिंह कैन सपोर्ट बट नॉट कृष्णा.
मित्रों, इसी
जवाब मुझे आज तक मिला है.
तो अब क्या मिलेगा? जवाब देने वाला तो अब है नहीं. मित्रों, जैसा आप जानते हैं, हम फरवरी महीने में रजा उत्सव मनाते हैं. तो अभी 22 को जो रजा का जन्मदिन है, एक बहुत दिलचस्प घटना हो रही है. एक जिला कलेक्टर ने मंडला में, जहां वो दफन है और जहां के वो थे, एक कला दीर्घा बनाई और उसका उस दिन लोकार्पण होगा. वो रजा कला वीथिका के नाम से. उसमें मंडला के 20-22 कलाकारों के चित्र प्रदर्शित होंगे, रजा के कुछ प्रिंट्स के अलावा. 28 फरवरी को हमारा जो त्रैमासिक आज कविता नरेश सक्सेना और कुछ अन्य कवि, वो एनेक्स में होता है. हम लखनऊ में भी अब कुछ शुरू कर रहे हैं. अपने अत्याचार को जितना बढ़ा सकें उतना बढ़ाना चाहते हैं. तो लखनऊ में एक कविता पाठ हो रहा है. कौन सी तारीख है उसकी, 29 फरवरी को। और अभी एक प्रदर्शनी चल रही है श्रीधरानी कला दीर्घा में। आप में से जिन लोगों की कला में दिलचस्पी हो वो जरूर देखने जाएं। वो अगले हफ्ते 10 दिन है। और कल शाम को 6 बजे नीचे मल्टीपर्पज हॉल में कृष्ण बलदेव वैद्य की स्मृति सभा है, उसमें भी आप सब आमंत्रित हैं। Now you can take the risk of going wherever you want to.